So last year, The Lord of the Rings Return to Moria was released with pretty mixed reviews, but after a year's worth of patches and updates, including a release on Steam, has the game gotten any better? Or does it suck a big bag of Balrog dicks? So guys, welcome to my video on The Lord of the Rings Return to Moria, and as a huge Lord of the Rings fan, it's without a doubt my favorite fandom. It has been very hard to not play this game since it initially launched last October on the Epic Game Store, and then later on PlayStation, because I knew eventually this game would probably come to Steam, and that's where I wanted to play, but today the time has come. Return to Moria has dropped on Steam and on Xbox, and I'm really just wanting to make this video giving you guys my thoughts and opinions on whether or not it's worth your time after a year's worth of updates, including a huge one that just dropped with this launch on Steam and Xbox. Because if you don't know, this game had a pretty rough launch last October, and there was lots of complaints about everything from the combat to the atmosphere. So I'm going in as a Lord of the Rings fan who has not played this game at its worst state. I'm going in fresh right now on Steam, and I'm just going to give you guys my thoughts and opinions on whether or not it's worth your time after all of these updates. But guys, welcome to Live from My Basement, where I make cool new videos like the one you're watching right now every single week, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future content. But guys, let's dive into the video. So for those who haven't played, what is Return to Moria? In short, it's yet another survival crafting game akin to games like Valheim, but with this time having the rich backdrop of Tolkien's Middle-earth. More specifically, when Lord Gimli, who's once again voiced by John Rhys-Davies, is calling all dwarves of the Fourth Age to return to Moria to reclaim it from what lies beneath the Misty Mountains, and it's here in the dwarf halls of Khazad-dûm where the game is set. With the general gameplay loop being exploring the epic halls of Moria while looting, battling goblins, orcs, and trolls, building up bases and defending them until it's time to move on and do it all over again, chasing the next campaign objective. Or if you're a seasoned survival player, you can skip straight to the sandbox mode where they throw out the narrative and let you explore Moria at your own pace. One concern I had about Return to Moria is that the game's environments would be all dark and dank dwarven ruins, devoid of all life or color. Though I am happy to say the game does have epic dwarvish halls and ruins, but also other biomes as well, such as orc towns and architecture, as well as the elvish quarter, which is bursting with life and color. All of which contrast each other and give the game a good visual variety. Another thing that's really cool that I felt that's worth mentioning is that the game at times has a really creepy, dreadful vibe to it, especially when you're playing the game solo, whereas in the opening of the game, you're constantly being stalked by groups of goblins and orcs who are watching you from a distance, talking about how they're going to strike and kill you at night.
We'll kill them all. No. One crisis at a time.
Return to Moria also has pretty decent enemy variety, with the goblins themselves having different armor variants, not to mention the remnants of not only Sauron's orc army, but Saruman's Uruk-hai army from Helm's Deep. Not to mention larger foes like drakes or trolls that can even turn to stone when they step into the sunlight. And speaking of the enemies, one of the biggest complaints Return to Moria had at launch was that the combat felt kind of weightless and didn't feel like you were actually connecting with the enemies when you hit them. But I'm happy to report, as of this build of the game's combat does feel good. It feels kinetic. Whenever you hit a goblin in the head with your axe, you feel it. Whether you're bashing them with your shield and knocking them on the ground, it feels like you're making contact with the enemies. As I know the devs have been patching to get the game's combat up to snuff, and it feels good, and if I'm being completely honest, if I wasn't looking for the issues in the game, I probably never would have noticed that there was an issue in the first place. Another cool thing that I like about this game is that to contrast the dark elements of this game, there's actually a pretty cozy side of the game. As when you enter your dwarf home, you can actually really make it feel like home, not to mention cool little elements like whenever you're cooking on the fire, the smoke trail actually is leading to the table that the food will be delivered to, which is kind of a neat touch. But at the end of the day, I know it's the score that's really doing the heavy lifting here, as when you're out adventuring, the score is all mysterious and cool, but when you come home, the music gets all cozy. And it kind of blows my mind that these musical pieces weren't in the game originally and that they're relatively new, because I can't really imagine the game without them. But the thing that really makes this game click for me and stand out above other survival games is the fact that it is a Lord of the Rings survival game, and it's absolutely dripping with lore and atmosphere, whether you're stumbling across signs of the Fellowship from whenever they pass through Moria, or revisiting locations, or even finding a mark left behind by Gandalf, or reading one of the endless pages of appendices. There's so much here for fans of Lord of the Rings. So The Lord of the Rings Return to Moria, is it worth your time after a year's worth of patches and updates? Ultimately, I would say yes. This game is competent and it works as a survival game, but it's kind of tricky because it's like, what does this game do that's better than other survival games that we played in the past? What does Return to Moria do that's better than, say, Valheim? And the answer is not that much, but it really comes down to two things. One, I'm a huge fan of the survival genre, and I'm also a huge fan of the Lord Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's universe, and combining them is a no-brainer for me. If you're not a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings or Middle-earth or anything like that, you're definitely not going to get as much out of this game as you would, say, if you were a fan of like Norse mythology. You obviously get more out of Valheim. But as a fan of the Lord of the Rings and as a fan of Tolkien's world, you can really tell that the people that made this game really did care about making sure this game felt like it fit within the mythos of Middle-earth. They didn't phone it in. You know, you could tell that this was made with an attention to detail by people who really cared about the source material. And over the last year of all the patches and updates, I feel like they've gone a long way in making the game feel as polished as a lot of people really wanted it to when it launched last year. Because I mean, a lot of the complaints about the combat and the environments and really just the atmosphere, I didn't notice them, even though I was kind of looking for those complaints. And I feel like, you know, over this last year, they've really gotten the game into a place that they can be proud of. But guys, at the end of the day, is it worth your time as a Lord of the Rings fan? Absolutely. Check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. But if you're not a Lord of the Rings fan, you're definitely not going to find as much here as somebody who is. But guys, that's what I think, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's all I have for this video. And if you did enjoy it, be sure to drop a like on it, because it helps the video reach new fans. And as I always say, that's always a good thing. I also make new videos like the one you're watching right now every single week. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See you.